So this week we are talking about how to save logistics costs, and we're going to do a series of these. I think it's particularly important because that's what everybody wants to do at the moment, is try and save costs. So this week we're going to be talking about inventory, coming right up. So for those of you who haven't been on the channel before, or maybe you don't realise, my day job is actually running a management consulting company, and we specialise in supply chain and logistics. It's called Logistics Bureau. And I was only thinking the other day that the thing that we help most of our clients with is helping them save costs in their supply chain and logistics operations. So let's put together a series of videos which will give people tips on how to save cost. This week we're going to be talking about inventory. Now, I'm going to mention 4 things that you need to look at to help reduce your inventory costs. And I'll tell you now, some of this is going to sound very basic, but it needs to be said because so many companies that we work with don't get some of this stuff. So hopefully there's going to be something in here for you. The first thing, which I'm sure you've heard about, is doing proper ABC analysis on your inventory. And I mean proper analysis and understanding the results, because so many companies don't. When we're looking at our clients' inventory, we always look at it from a few different perspectives. So we've all heard of the ABC analysis, the Pareto analysis. One of the things that we tend to look at first is a Pareto by COGS, cost of goods sold, because we want to look at the value of the inventory. And what we're looking for in a normal sort of pattern, normal distribution pattern across the inventory, is about 80% of the cost of goods sold value will be the A lines, about 15% are the B lines, and 5% the C lines, the A lines being your most popular, fastest movers, then the Bs, then the Cs. When you flip that around and look at the number of SKUs, the number of stock keeping units that make up those categories, we're looking at about 20% normally being the A lines, about 30% of the SKUs being the B lines, and about 50% of the SKUs being the C lines. So that's where you kind of get this 80-20. You get 80% of your sales or 80% of the COGS coming from about 20% of the lines. What I see frequently, and we have a whole bunch of inventory specialists who do this day in, day out, so I get to sit in on their meetings and see them perform, if you like. What we've been seeing a lot of recently is a very long tail of SKUs. So when you start with if you had a graph and you've got the A's here, and then, the graph curve comes down like this, and then you've got the B's and the C's and the D's, and you get this very long tail at the end of the graph. I've seen some extremely long tails. And what does that mean? Well, people have got some very slow moving product lines there. And funnily enough, I was talking to a company in Melbourne this week. Sorry if I'm a bit croaky. I've literally just got off the plane and I'm getting on another plane, getting around visiting some clients. But talking to a client this week who had a very long tail, and I won't say what industry they're in, but it was felt to be necessary in their industry because they needed to carry products that had been around for a very long time that people still wanted, even though they weren't sort of buying them too frequently. And there's very often reasons like that in a business, but investigate that tail. You've got to understand, is it legitimate? Do we really need all of those products in the range? This company felt that they needed them, but they're still reviewing it. Okay, so number 1 is your ABC analysis. Number 2, and one of our inventory specialists, thank you, Melanie, you reminded me of this one earlier this week when we were talking about it, and it's life cycle management. Now, have you come across the term slob stock? Hopefully you have. Slob stock is slow and obsolete stock. When we're doing analysis on inventory, we talk about SLOBX. So we want to identify the slow-moving stock, the obsolete stock, which is being replaced, and the excess stock. That's where the X comes from. So you really need to look at how you're managing the life cycle of products coming into the business. Are you forecasting those sales? Are they replacing existing product lines? Is that sort of smooth replacement taking place? And how are you managing out some of those discontinued lines? Or are you just ending up with a lot of excess stock? So that's got to be managed very carefully. So that's another great opportunity to reduce your inventory. The third one I'll mention, and you might say, well, Rob, what's this got to do with inventory, is your network, your distribution network. And again, No names, no pack drill. We're not going to be naming clients or inventory or industries, of course. But sitting in on a client meeting last week, it was one of these fascinating meetings where one of the team had plotted the delivery profiles nationally from their warehouses. And if you imagine, the country doesn't matter, but all over the country, let's say there was about 6 warehouses, and it's almost like watching one of those sports reviews where the ball went, you know, and there's these lines sort of going all over the country. You know, from this warehouse, orders went here. From this warehouse, orders went here. And when you see it graphically represented like this, you go, hang on a minute. Every warehouse is sending product right across the country. You know, how could this be happening? And it was down to poor inventory deployment. So you've got to decide where you're going to deploy that inventory to be most effective. Are you going to have full range distribution centers? Are you just going to have your A's in all of the distribution centers and the B's and C's held more centrally? But in this case, there was so much product crisscrossing. You know, what are the consequences of that? Just think about that for a moment. So it was happening because they didn't have the correct stock in the right warehouse. So one thing that can happen is you're going to lose sales, which of course you don't want. The other thing that happens is you say to the customer, look, I'm really sorry we haven't got it, and we put it on back order. If you've never heard of that term before, it basically means, look, we haven't got it now, but we'll hold this order, and when the product comes in, we'll deliver it to you. So that's the back order. So you get back orders, which customers don't like. The other consequence of this, of course, is that you've got product crisscrossing the country on really long distribution legs, and then you've got all the replenishment legs, so you get excess transport cost as well. So deploying that inventory across your network, number 3, is a really good way to have a look at that and see where you can trim back some of the costs. And in this case, it's not just the inventory cost, it's the cost of lost sales, it's excess transport cost as well. And number 4, again, a great reminder from one of our inventory specialists, minimum order quantities. Yes, there are loads of companies out there who still get this wrong. And they tend to be looking at their supply base and putting orders into their suppliers to try and get the best unit cost possible. You know, by that I mean, if we buy these in hundreds, we get a cheaper price. If we buy them in 10,000s, we get a cheaper price. But you've got to look at the total cost of ownership. And are you buying them in such a way that you're buying big quantities less frequently, and they're clogging up your warehouse? It's an investment in that inventory that's taking you a long time to get a return on. Is it better to actually buy in smaller quantities at a slightly higher unit price more frequently, so that you get a more higher velocity of your inventory going through and you're getting a better return on your investment? So don't forget the basic stuff like MOQs. So there we go, just a very quick reminder. Sorry, being a bit croaky. I've been on planes all day and I'm getting up in a few hours to get on another one. But I wanted to get this video out to you, the first in the series on where to save logistics costs. Do comment down below, where else would you, what other area of the logistics or supply chain would you like some tips on where to save costs? And we'll do a whole series of them for you. If you're sitting there thinking, yeah, you know, that's us, we've got these logistics problems we could do with a hand, jump down below the video. I'll put a link there. You can click on that link and get in contact with us if you need one of our specialists to help you out. But thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye for now.